days in the county jail.
On March 25, 2015, around midday, Lopez's body was found in a residential yard at Dwight and Calhoun Streets in the North End. The police investigation determined that Lopez was fatally injured during the previous night, with suspicions that the incident was tied to gang conflicts. The evidence pointed towards gang involvement, leading the police to focus on a few individuals as potential suspects. Lee Rios soon became a primary suspect. Following this suspicion, the police were granted warrants to arrest him and search his apartment on Nursery Street. The operation also led to the arrest of Rios' accomplices, Valerie Medina, aged 22, Daryl Self, aged 19, and Jonathan Guevara, aged 18.
Sentencing to explain to the defendant. It's not important for me to offer more comments to deliver. As Attorney Stamp has, I believe, correctly noted the facts of this particular case. As to count one, Stan, the count will be following the liquor secret, is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay, that is to be filed for.
The search at Rios' apartment was highly successful, uncovering an extensive assortment of weapons, referred to as a treasure trove, crucial for associating Rios and possibly his associates with the gang-related murder. After being arrested, Rios helped the police by sharing information. Later on, however, he tried to get his statements to the police thrown out in court. He argued that being under the influence made him unable to understand his rights properly. This defense was rejected in court. Ultimately, Lee Rios received a life sentence without parole. David Adam Pate from Lancaster, North Carolina, known for his white supremacist views and distinctive features like Satan tattooed on his face and a split tongue, committed a heinous crime in November 2013. Pate, who had extreme ideologies and an interest in the Ku Klux Klan, lured his 33-year-old friend, Ricky James, into a secluded wooded area with the false promise of drinking wine together. There, he brutally ended the life of James by stabbing him 39 times, resulting in James's death. Children looking for a lost dog stumbled upon James's body in the woods, leading to an investigation into his death.
Charged with murder. You understand what you're charged with?
Yes, sir.
And you understand that
my brother was, as the solicitor gave me the reviews of what was going on in the case, and Robinson might want to talk to me, look like this, but my brother was the type of person who got drunk, and when he started to drink, he started to trust people too much. I just hope he knows he's going to suffer back there. You let the devils, man. You devil, man.
Pate was already detained on a separate charge of disorderly conduct from 2 weeks before the tragic incident. The investigation focused on linking Pate to James's demise, pending autopsy results. A search at Pate's residence uncovered at least 20 knives and over 20 masks, suggesting premeditation and the possibility of other crimes. Pate admitted to his mother that he took great pleasure in ending the life of James. In 2015, he admitted to the crime. Post-arrest interviews revealed Pate's lack of regret, blaming James for his gullibility. Pate's appearance, with tattoos like Satan, fear, and the number 974 inches, the latter indicating ties to the Gangster Disciples gang, shed light on his identity and motives.
221, State versus David Adam Pate, having pled guilty to murder. There is a benefit to the defendant in that he's still.
So, they say God is a vengeance. Thank you, God.
He says he'd like to do it again and enjoyed what he did. I can't explain what we just heard. Right? Even from that day, watching it again, or sitting across from him.
If anybody ever deserved life in prison, it's David Pate.
He is remorseless, emotionless.
He was given a life sentence without parole. In October 2016, Christopher Dean, a 33-year-old from Lithia Springs, was tricked into going to Xavier Gibson and his brother Orlando Gibson's house in Atlanta by Christopher Lockett under the false pretense of an illegal substance deal. The real motive, however, was that Dean had been a police informant in California, making him a target for Lockett and his group. Dean was brutally tortured for over an hour with a 2x4 and a crowbar. This torture session ended with Dean suffering fatal injuries to the back of the head twice, serving serving as a stark message to the gang world about the consequences of police cooperation. Jasper Green, 27, and Lamar Allman, 25, were paid to clean the crime scene and dispose of Dean's body and car by burning them.
State ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, is the defense ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, very good.
On the 1st of 2019, on indictment number 17 SC 149 of this hearing. On count 1 of the indictment, participation in criminal street gang activity, the sentencing range minimum is 10 and the maximum is 20 or life. The count 8 aggravated.
It was found by the jury to be not guilty of that count.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
I have a record.
All the evidence, whatever is going to be submitted, victim impact or otherwise, from both the state as well.
Since this conviction and while the trial is pending, I've had an opportunity to review those previous convictions for sentencing as it pertains to Mr. Lockett only. On count 1, criminal street.
However, given the horrific state of Dean's body, they chose to leave it in the trunk of his car in the parking lot of the Hamilton E. Holmes subway station, where Atlanta police later found it. This discovery led to the arrest of 7 individuals involved in the tragic incident, including Lockett, the Gibsons, Quatts Clark, 21, Joshua Rooks, 27, and Jasper Green, 27, all facing charges related to the crime.
We all have empty space in our hearts for Chris. Aaron, his youngest son, he was 1 when Chris passed.
To see the comings and goings and essentially murder headquarters happening at Mr. Christopher Lockett's will merge. Aggravated assault will merge into count 2, malice murder. Count 9, aggravated.
Will be 10 years. Are there any questions about the courts? Relate to how you must feel, except as a parent, I know that it has to make better choices, even that your own son made. But quite frankly, or why, I guess, was the question. And it's better than what took place. But we had a system. They kept an open mind until it was time for them to deliberate. They deliberated over 20 years to be served concurrently. We have count 7. We want to discuss your options at this point with your attorney, Mr.
By April 2019, the court had handed down severe sentences. Lockett received life without parole. Clark was given 2 life sentences, and Green, Rooks, and Xavier Gibson were each sentenced to life in prison. On July 12, 2015, Keandre Duff, 20 years old, suffered fatal injuries and met his end during a block party on Brook Street near Eastern Michigan University, an event that attracted over 100 attendees. The incident took place at the intersection of Cross and Ballard Streets amidst a confrontation between 2 groups of young men, resulting in 3 arrests. Duff was hit in the head and died as a result. His killing was seen as an act of vengeance for the tragic end of 17-year-old Keon Washington, who had met his end at another party in Ypsilanti the previous summer. Although Duff had faced charges over Washington's death, those charges were dismissed due to a lack of evidence.
Mother deserves to bury her son, and no mother deserves to see her son change. My bad choice led to a lose-lose situation. I won't be able to hug mine for a while, and my mom won't be able to hug me for a while, so it's a sad situation. Or that I'm not even that type of person. You know, the lifestyle that I chose to live put me in a situation, you know, full of pride, caught in the streets and in the middle of gangs and all type of other stuff. Possibility for my actions, and we're ready to face the consequences. I want to use my time to make me a better person. It's been 4 years. She hasn't got justice or peace of mind because the killer of her son still walks free. Attention to my brother, Jamar, and everybody, you know, everybody around my age and other people that I be with.
The aftermath of Duff's death led to an escalation in violence, with 7 additional incidents of gunfire in Ypsilanti and its township, fueling a retaliatory spiral between the gang's Rack Life, which Duff was associated with, and Bo, linked to Washington. Tarek Jackson, implicated in this ongoing feud, received a prison sentence of 17 to 40 years from the Washtenaw County Trial Court on March 21, 2017.
We will identify you, we will find you. The violence has escalated and mimicking gang culture by way of fights.
Why didn't they do it when the first person was?
The fathers and mothers, I call you out today.
At his sentencing, Jackson appeared to show remorse during the reading of impact statements from the victim's family, to whom he offered an apology. In an unexpected turn of events in district court, inmates Tanner Jacobson and Cody Howard, still handcuffed, attempted a bold escape while in the presence of Judge R.W. Buzzard. The escape unfolded as they dashed for a stairwell to exit the court building. In a move not typically associated with judicial behavior, Judge Buzzard quickly shed his robe and chased after the fleeing inmates, showcasing an extraordinary commitment to duty and public safety. Jacobson, at the forefront of the escape, was nearly successful until Judge Buzzard, with surprising agility and resolve, tackled him to the ground, stopping him in his tracks. Meanwhile, Cody Howard, the other escapee, was also swiftly captured by court staff shortly after Buzzard's intervention with Jacobson. Judge Buzzard later described his actions as instinctive, driven by a swift realization that there was no one else immediately available to intervene. Both Jacobson and Howard were charged with attempting to escape, and Jacobson received an additional charge of third-degree assault for an alleged kick at the judge during the altercation. The community and peers widely lauded Judge Buzzard for his decisive and brave response to the incident, which went above and beyond his judicial duties. In a significant trial at the Macomb County Circuit Court, 3 gang members, Kenneth Hill, Jamar Robinson, and Darius Diaz-Gaskin, were convicted for the murder of Basim Salaka, a party store owner in Clinton Township. On March 28, 2014, the trio entered Salaka's Moonlight Party store and inflicted a fatal injury to his back, resulting in his death during a robbery attempt. Despite Salaka's policy for his employees to always comply with robbers to avoid harm, the assailants did not give him a chance to hand over the money. After deliberating for 2 days, the jury found Hill, Robinson, and Gaskin guilty on charges of first-degree murder, armed robbery, possessing a weapon during the commission of a felony, and conspiracy to commit armed robbery, highlighting the deliberate nature of their crime. They were sentenced to life in prison without parole by Judge Mary Krzyzanowski. After the sentencing, a tense situation happened when Jamar Robinson said something unclear to Salaka's sister, like, "It ain't over," which seemed like another insult or threat.
More could you possibly want to take from this family, yet insult them and threaten them and say, "This ain't over yet"?
I know I wasn't talking to them. I know for a fact I wasn't.
Well, who were you talking to?
I was talking to my family.
And you know what? If I could give you an extra 10 years, I would, but I can't.
This comment made the victim's family even more upset and led to Judge Krzyzanowski giving Robinson a strict telling off. Alan McCarty Jr. from Milton, Florida, received a 20-year prison sentence for making death threats against Circuit Judge Stacia Warren after she ruled against him in a child custody dispute. McCarty's time in court was marked by loud, swear-filled tirades, including racial insults and swearing at both the judge and an assistant state attorney, showing disrespect and interrupting the court's work. His actions got worse when he threatened the life of a prosecutor's unborn. Because of these outbursts, McCarty got an extra 10 days added to his sentence. This additional punishment also considered his ongoing disruptions in court and an inappropriate comment made to Circuit Judge Matt Foreman. McCarty's uncontrollable behavior led to him being removed from the courtroom. He had to watch his sentencing from another room through one-way glass. Both Circuit Judge Matt Foreman and State Attorney R.J. Lariza commented on McCarty's actions and his punishment. Judge Foreman directly addressed McCarty's unreasonable suggestions to him, and State Attorney Lariza pointed out that the 20-year sentence gives McCarty plenty of time to think about his serious offenses against Judge Warren and the justice system. In the aftermath of the police incident involving Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Kyle Rittenhouse, who was 17 at the time, used an AR-15 style semi-automatic weapon to injure 3 people on August 25, 2020. This incident left 2 dead and 1 injured. The prosecution argued Rittenhouse arrived at the protests intending to cause harm and acted as a self-appointed enforcer, pointing to his carrying and using a loaded weapon as proof of his intentions.
Armed himself with an AR-15 style semi-automatic loaded with 30 rounds in the magazine. The defendant had that night 8 bullets. That will not be in dispute.
On the other hand, the defense maintained that Rittenhouse was there to protect businesses and provide medical help, asserting that he fired his weapon in self-defense when he felt his life was in danger.
What are you doing there?
We're cleaning graffiti off of Ruther Central High School.
And were you getting paid to do this?
No, I was not.
And you see what the graffiti says?
Yes.
The trial, starting on November 1st, 2021, captured the nation's attention, stirring debates on weapon rights, the concept of vigilante justice, and self-defense. Throughout the 2-week trial, both sides presented their arguments, with Rittenhouse becoming notably emotional when he testified about the incident. His testimony was a key moment in the proceedings.
I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski, and there were there were 3 people right there. That's what I... That's where I run.
Time for our break anyway. You can just relax for a minute, sir. We're going to take a break about 10 minutes, and please don't talk about the case during the break. Read, watch, or listen to any account of the trial.
On November 19, 2021, the jury decided to acquit Rittenhouse on all counts, leading to a divided public reaction. George Gavel Thomas, infamous as the head of the 28S gang in Bishop Lavis, Cape Town, earned his nickname from a term often associated with violence.
Today, I'm gonna be brutally honest. I'm not saying I regret it but what I know for a fact, if I could have changed some things, I wouldn't be here where I'm now.
As a leading figure in South Africa's criminal world, his trial in the Western Cape High Court shed light on his crimes, including murder, extortion, robbery, and conspiracy, showing him as both a direct actor and a mastermind behind criminal activities. Thomas stood out for his active role in gang operations, even managing his gang's deeds while in jail. Remarkably, he orchestrated crimes and issued commands for violent actions through over 33,000 phone calls made to his gang from prison, highlighting his profound control and influence over the gang's activities from behind bars. The trial also exposed the deadly reach of Thomas's influence, as about half of the potential state witnesses met their end. Ultimately, Thomas and 6 of his gang members received life sentences. His occasional smiles during the trials might have signaled defiance or indifference toward the severity of his crimes. On February 21, 2011, at the age of 16, Nicholas Lindsay inflicted fatal injuries on Officer David Crawford, striking him 5 times with a weapon after being confronted over a suspected car break-in in St. Petersburg. Crawford, who had been serving for 25 years and was unarmed except for a notebook, was attempting to question Lindsay. A jury later convicted Lindsay of first-degree murder, and Pinellas Pasco Circuit Judge Thane Covert sentenced him to life without parole, the only sentence allowed by law at the time for such a conviction. However, a U.S. Supreme Court decision later ruled that mandatory life sentences for juveniles were unconstitutional because they amounted to cruel and unusual punishment. This led to Lindsay's case being reopened to reconsider his sentence based on new guidelines that required judges to take into account factors like the offender's age, chance for rehabilitation, and the crime's impact on the victim's family. In 2013, at a resentencing hearing under these new guidelines, Judge Covert again sentenced Lindsay to life in prison. Covert's decision was detailed in a 26-page ruling, noting the brutality of the crime and Lindsay's continued aggression in prison, including fighting and having contraband. Despite Lindsay's defense pointing to his educational efforts and program participation in jail as signs of rehabilitation, these efforts were overshadowed by his behavioral issues. Under the new sentencing guidelines, Lindsay is allowed a review of his sentence after 25 years, providing a future opportunity for reassessment based on his behavior and any new legal changes. Arthur Booth found himself in a courtroom facing charges of burglary, grand theft, fleeing, and resisting arrest, but the proceedings took a deeply personal turn when Judge Glazer recognized him as a former middle school classmate. This unexpected recognition stirred Booth's strong emotional reaction.
Mr. Booth, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go to Nautilus for middle school?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I'm sorry to see you there. I always wondered what happened to you, sir.
Oh my goodness.
This is the nicest kid in middle school.
Oh my goodness.
He was the best kid in middle school. I used to play football with him, all the kids, and look what has happened. I'm so sorry.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Good luck to you, sir. I hope you're able to come out of this okay and just lead a lawful life.
After spending almost 10 months incarcerated, Booth was released into a court program, with Judge Glazer and his family waiting to welcome him back.
Take care of your family, try and get a job, stay clean. You're going to do something good for somebody else. That's what you got to believe it.
You better believe it. She's an inspiration and motivation to me right now. She just, seeing Mindy is incredible.
Adding to the intrigue, Judge Glazer had another unexpected reunion in her courtroom, this time recognizing a fellow passenger from a recent cruise.
What were you on, the Breeze?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. You had a nice cruise? I'm glad to be back to work. I had to watch 4 kids.
You was on a cruise this weekend that just passed?
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't see me dancing? I was the one dancing.
You were dancing. I was sitting upstairs in the shade.
These instances underscore the small world nature of Judge Glazer's experiences, bridging her personal and professional worlds in surprising ways. In Brevard County, Florida, in 2015, a courtroom dispute between Judge John C. Murphy and Assistant Public Defender Andrew Weinstock became unexpectedly heated. The argument began over Weinstock's decision to waive his client's right to a speedy trial, which apparently frustrated Judge Murphy. The situation escalated when Judge Murphy told Weinstock to sit down and eventually led to Judge Murphy challenging Weinstock to a physical altercation outside the courtroom in a back hallway away from security cameras. The dispute did turn physical in the hallway, as evidenced by the courtroom's audio equipment that picked up sounds of the scuffle, though the video did not capture it. After the altercation, Judge Murphy returned to the courtroom, out of breath and making light of the situation by mentioning his age. This incident, notable for its departure from the professional conduct expected in court, became widely known after the video went viral, resulting in Judge Murphy's removal from his position. In the Superior Court of Los Angeles County, a serious case unfolded involving teenage brothers Anthony and Stephen Caprio, who were part of a street gang. The case centered on the stabbing death of an 18-year-old Cleveland high school student named Orellana, who had no gang ties. On April 24, 2013, the Caprio brothers approached Orellana while he was playing handball at Grover Cleveland High School. A gang-related challenge from the brothers led to a violent confrontation, during which Anthony Caprio stabbed Orellana several times, causing fatal injuries. After the attack, the brothers escaped from the scene. The legal proceedings charged the Caprio brothers with second-degree murder for their assault on Orellana. The trial highlighted their gang involvement and the details of the brutal attack. The court found Anthony Caprio guilty and sentenced him to life in prison with the chance of parole after 16 years for the stabbing. Stephen Caprio, despite not being the one to stab Orellana, received a life sentence as well, with parole possible after 15 years due to his participation in the incident. Throughout their sentencing in the Van Nuys courtroom, led by Judge Martin Herskowitz, the Caprio brothers showed no emotion. Dennis Lynn Rader, infamously known as the BTK killer for his method of bind, torture, kill, stands as one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. He took the lives of 10 individuals in Wichita and Park City, Kansas, between 1974 and 1991. Rader notoriously communicated with police and media outlets, sending letters that described his violent actions in detail and taunted authorities with clues to his identity.
Dear sir, first, a woman went to the police with serious complaints about a destructive religious cult.
These communications instilled widespread fear and frustration among both law enforcement and the public. After years without contact, Rader resumed his letters in 2004, sparking a revitalized investigation. He was apprehended close to his home in Park City by a collaborative effort of the Wichita Police, FBI, and ATF on February 25, 2005. Bringing significant relief to the community.
BTK is arrested.
Following his arrest, a search of Rader's home revealed a trove of evidence, including computer equipment, journals, and items taken from his victims, providing critical insight into his crimes. Rader proved to be remarkably open during interrogations, offering detailed confessions of his actions.
You guys know. What else can I say who you are? GK. You're BTK. The belt that I used was the belt I was wearing, and I had her come back
I whispered to her a little bit, which didn't belong. I told her PKK was a bad guy, and she really smirked.
Were journals and drawings. He had materials that he collected from each of his victims, clothing, car keys.
He had compartments everywhere. He had false bottoms in a closet, he had stuff in a crawl space, he had stuff in a treehouse he had made for his.
It will therefore be the judgment, order, and sentence of the court that you, Dennis L. Rader, be taken by the sheriff of Sedgwick County, Kansas, and by him delivered to the custody of the Secretary of Corrections to serve a term of life for which you will not be parole eligible until the expiration of 40 years.
He was convicted on 10 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for 175 years, reflecting the particularly brutal nature of his crimes as emphasized by the sentencing judge. At a court session in Jackson, Michigan, things took a left turn during a hearing about a personal protection order violation involving Jacob Larson. Larson got into hot water for sending unasked for Facebook messages to a former high school acquaintance, which broke the rules of the PPO against him. It came out during the hearing that this wasn't the first time Larson had been called out for trying to contact the plaintiff. The judge, who had laid down the PPO on Larson 4 months back, had had enough and warned him about crossing the line again, pointing out his troublesome behavior.
For 3 days. And the next time you violate it, you're going to jail for... You know what? You got a bad attitude. You had a bad attitude last time you were in court.
The situation heated up when Larson hinted that there might be something going on between the judge and the plaintiff, which really ticked off the judge. Initially, Larson was looking at a 3-day stint in jail for the PPO breach, but his rude interruptions and claims pushed the judge to ramp up his sentence to 45 days, and then to 93 days behind bars.
Okay?
You and her are buddy-buddy, y'all get along, y'all are...
45 days county jail. 93 days in the county jail.
When it came time to take Larson away, he wouldn't go quietly. In a move you don't see every day, the judge ditched his robe and jumped in to help the bailiff get Larson under control. After a bit of a struggle, they got Larson in cuffs. He was then taken off to start his 93-day jail sentence, leaving a courtroom drama behind. Austin Boone found himself in Jefferson District Court facing charges for speeding 22 miles over the speed limit and having substance paraphernalia. When Judge Stephanie Pierce Burke asked Boone about his plea, Boone was unsure and looked to his lawyer for advice, uncertain if he should plead guilty or not. Judge Burke reminded him of the advantages of pleading guilty as they had discussed: fines for the speeding and substance charges, the chance to attend traffic school to avoid points on his license, and total court costs of $1,178. As the court session was wrapping up, Judge Burke noticed Boone's sagging pants and told him to pull them up before leaving, a comment that initially drew some laughs, but was seriously enforced by Judge Burke. Boone acknowledged the judge, but instead of adjusting his pants, he took them off, showing disrespect towards the court's rules.
Moving your pants was extremely poor judgment. Okay, I'm holding you in contempt. I'm going to sentence you to 7 days to serve for direct contempt of court.
After repeatedly telling Boone to pull up his pants without success, Judge Burke deemed Boone's behavior as contemptuous and sentenced him to 7 days in jail, though Boone ended up serving 2 days. Boone's original legal issues regarding speeding and substance paraphernalia were settled according to the plea deal, which required him to attend traffic school and pay the fines. In February 2019, Montana Baronet, a 23-year-old from Baltimore known for his dangerous reputation, was convicted and received 2 life sentences, marking the end of his criminal activities. At his sentencing, only Valencia Bullock, the mother of one of his victims, Antonio Addison, dared to speak up, highlighting the widespread fear Baronet instigated. Baronet offered a superficial apology, claiming Addison was a friend he had cautioned about street life. His criminal career, starting at 13, included leading a major illicit trafficking ring in Sandtown and participating in a highly violent incident near the University of Maryland-Baltimore campus in July 2015, where his group fired over 50 rounds.
Who are born and raised and continue to live on the streets of Baltimore, who don't make that choice that Mr. Barron, just what's at stake and just how to make sure my police department performs at a high level and partners with our partners of matter. What struck me is that Over the past 4 nights, I've met with hundreds upon hundreds of people.
The trial, attended by Baltimore's Police Commissioner Michael Harrison, was heavily secured, barring phones from the courtroom due to the case's high profile and concerns over witness safety, including an incident where co-defendants tried attacking U.S. Marshals.
Robbing and kidnapping rival drug dealers and engaging in murder for hire.
Yes, Baltimore, there is a robust, active crime strategy, and anyone who says more is either intentionally uninformed or operating off of ulterior motives.
Repeat offender is in Baltimore City. We are certain he has been involved, and believe me, it's a positive. We're not trying to hide anything from you, but at this point, the active investigations take precedent.
The trial underscored the urgent need for an effective crime strategy in Baltimore, acknowledging the challenge of curbing city violence. In Berea Municipal Court, 21-year-old Milton Watts faced Judge Chris Green under tense circumstances, eventually leading to a significant jail sentence for Watts. Watts, who had missed a previous court appearance for a domestic violence charge, cited personal issues for his absence, including his mother's failure to act on his behalf and a death in the family. Left without an attorney, Watts told Judge Green he would represent himself, despite clearly not understanding the legal procedures. The situation took a turn for the worse during a discussion on bail, with Watts swearing at Judge Green. This disrespect led Judge Green to find Watts in contempt of court, sentencing him to 30 days in jail. As Watts continued his defiant and disrespectful behavior, his sentence was progressively increased, first to 60 days, then 90, and finally peaking at 360 days due to his repeated outbursts and profanity.
You can either make life easy or you can make life hard. I already ruined my life. That's 60. You want to go for 90? That's 90 more.
Despite his family's pleas for calm, Watts's behavior remained unchanged until Judge Green decided to reduce his sentence to 90 days, equating to 4 days for every insult he hurled. In the end, Watts pleaded no contest to the original domestic violence charge, which added a separate 5-day sentence to his punishment. In Elyria Municipal Court, Ohio, an interaction between Ebony Burks and Judge Gary Bennett escalated dramatically, resulting in an extraordinary 300-day jail sentence for Burks due to contempt of court. The 32-year-old Burks was appearing via video for charges including misdemeanor assault and domestic violence involving her grandfather, Shadrach McCrae, and his partner. After entering a not guilty plea, Burks objected to her bond conditions, which forbade her from contacting the victims or returning to her grandfather's home where she lived. The situation deteriorated as Burks voiced her objections, leading to Judge Bennett finding her in contempt and initially imposing a 30-day jail sentence. As Burks became more confrontational and continued to argue, Judge Bennett extended her sentence in 30-day increments in response to her ongoing defiance.
Nothing. We'll talk in 6 months when you're ready to come back for your case. That's 200 days. You got anything else to say, Miss Burks? That's 300 days.
The tension peaked with Burks's persistent interruptions and a direct obscenity directed at Judge Bennett, culminating in a record 300-day sentence for contempt of court. In Washtenaw County, Michigan, the sentencing of Christopher Brooks for ending the life of Larius Daughtery on May 14, 2022, escalated into a highly emotional scene, marking a moment of extreme courtroom unrest. Brooks had been convicted of the violent murder of Daughtery, with investigations linking him directly to the crime. This led to his arrest and trial. During his sentencing, emotions boiled over, leading to behavior that the presiding judge labeled as the most disruptive they had ever witnessed.
Sorry for being disrespectful. I'm usually not that type of person, and I'm very professional. Days like this, people will bring the monster out of you. Devil, you look at the right.
The judge took this opportunity to stress the importance of maintaining composure and respecting the rights of others within a legal and public forum.
I do have to say that what happened earlier today when we had begun the sentencing was the worst courtroom behavior that I've ever encountered. I understand that emotions were running high, but lives were endangered. And you simply must learn to control your anger and respect the rights of others, to be free from violence when you're in a public setting such as the courthouse. You disrespect yourself and these proceedings and our system of justice when you don't control your behavior and engage in outbursts. We are continuing the sentencing. We have already gone through the pre-sentence report, and we've heard the victim.
Ultimately, Brooks received a prison sentence of 15 to 35 years for his actions. In Colorado's Jefferson County District Court, gang member Abel Gallegos was sentenced for his involvement in the abduction and fatal harming of 28-year-old Simone Duran. Duran had previously helped the police by identifying Alonzo Quintana in a separate homicide case in 2018, which put her on the gang's radar. Gallegos enticed Duran to a parking lot on West Colfax via social media, where he and Quintana kidnapped her, took her to an empty lot, and fired at her 10 times. Gallegos, along with another gang member, Rene Francisco Rosales, later went back to the crime scene to burn Duran's body, showing a profound lack of respect for her life. Throughout his trial, Gallegos displayed no regret, even in the face of the victim's family's sorrow. Judge Philip McNulty, appalled by Gallegos' apathy and the brutality of the crime, sentenced him to 163 years in prison, emphasizing the crime's cold and brutal nature.
Miss her, and they ask about her every day. They wake up in the middle of the night crying for her.
I am struck by the casualness in which it was committed, the absolute disparate crying as you're let out of the courtroom to serve the rest of your life in prison.
This sentence aimed to serve as a warning against gang violence, conveying a strong message to both gang members and the broader community about the severe repercussions of such actions. In Jefferson County, Kentucky, the trial of 33-year-old rapper Bryce Rhods, also known as Rambo, made headlines due to allegations of violent crimes he committed back in May 2016. Rhodes was charged with causing fatal injuries to 40-year-old father Christopher Jones in a drive-by and with the lethal stabbing of teenage brothers Larry Ordway, 14, and Maurice Gordon, 16.
Do your job, not to worry about me. That's what I'm saying. Well, I worry about me. You worry about yourself. You're not trying to give me a fair chance, effective counsel.
Well, who do you think I should give you as a lawyer?
I'll write the Bar Association and the ACLU. You're going to find out, though. You're going to find out real quick.
Prosecutors believed Rhodes ended the life of Jones under a false impression of a bounty on his head and murdered the teens to keep them from snitching. Rhodes's behavior in court didn't help matters. He was combative, throwing threats at Judge Charles Cunningham, accusing his defense of racial bias, and cursing freely, which just added to the courtroom drama. His clash with his lawyer, Brendan McLeod, who had to quit due to a personal link to the victims, didn't go unnoticed. Rhodes even spat on McLeod and threatened him, leading to more chaos. The question of whether Rhodes's mental state and intellectual challenges made him unfit for the death penalty came up. Judge Julie Kalin decided against the death penalty, but ruled Rhodes was fit enough for trial, facing life imprisonment instead. After over 7 years since the crimes happened, Rhodes was convicted for all 3 murders. This case, with its mix of mistaken belief and deadly attempts to silence witnesses, left the victims' families and the community reeling from the loss. In Bakersfield, California, 27-year-old Tobias Roman, nicknamed Giggles, had a heated arraignment over charges like attempted robbery, terroristic threats, and wielding a weapon, all stemming from accusations of following a mall worker around. Right from the start, he clashed with the court by refusing to stand when asked, setting off a showdown. Judge Charles Bamer had to step in, getting Roman to follow the rules and assigning him a public defender. Despite efforts to keep things on track, Roman kept butting in, testing Judge Bamer's patience. Things hit a boiling point when Roman, kicked out for not keeping quiet, threatened to harm Judge Bamer. This threat wasn't taken lightly. It was formally recorded, underscoring the need for action to keep everyone in court safe. Roman ended up pleading no contest to threatening a judge, netting him 8 months in jail. He faced other charges, but only got additional time for making threats to terrorize, adding another 3 years to his sentence. On December 7, 2018, in Florida, at Jade Park Apartment, a dreadful incident took place where Damon Kemp was found to have taken the lives of Trey, Ingram, and Jordan Payton. Following this tragic event, Kemp quickly found himself facing serious legal action.
God! 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 God!
Where's he put anybody?
In court, a public defender was assigned to represent Kemp, as mentioned by the judge during his arraignment, a session that was recorded to capture all statements accurately. Kemp's reaction during the proceedings was unexpectedly unusual.
I've appointed the public defender to represent you, so you have a lawyer this morning. And after I've done all that, I determine the conditions of your release, if you can be released. You already heard all those instructions on tape earlier this morning. Let me remind you, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in later proceedings. This proceeding's being recorded this morning, so there's not going to be any doubt, Mr. Kemp, about what you said or who you said it to or when you said it. The public defender has been appointed to represent you this morning, in case you haven't already gotten private counsel, and I don't see private counsel with you here.
Charged with 2 counts of second-degree felony murder, the judge, after looking over the arrest details, saw enough evidence to justify Kemp's charges. Considering the serious nature of these charges, the judge decided Kemp wouldn't be eligible for bail, meaning he'd stay in Volusia County Jail waiting for his next court appearance.
Today. Now, you are charged with 2 counts of second-degree felony murder. I have reviewed the arrest report. I do believe that there is probable cause for the arrest. And under these circumstances, I am not able to grant you bond or any form of pretrial release. So you're to be held at the Volusia County Jail, and you will be brought before the felony division judge at the next date on her or his calendar. All right? Thank you very much, sir. Ma'am, take her out of the courtroom, please. Thank you very much.
In the end, Damon Kemp received a life sentence for taking the life of Ingraham and Payton, a ruling that reflected the seriousness of his crimes. During a tough time after her mother's death, Conte Hosla Short Brundage was looking forward to a first date with Richard Jordan on her mother's birthday for some comfort. However, Jordan didn't show up, leaving Brundage feeling rejected and very upset. Brundage decided to sue Jordan for $10,000, claiming his no-show caused her emotional pain, especially on such an important day.
If he responds and his response is a lie, it's perjury, then my documents will prove that he lied and his response.
No. The lawsuit, filled with grief and anger, was taken to District Judge Herman Marble Jr. in 2020. At a Zoom court session, Judge Marble told Brundage that her emotional distress complaint wasn't something his court could handle, suggesting she take it to circuit court.
That's not something that's really justiciable in district court.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said that's not something that's justiciable in district court. That has to be brought in circuit court.
The session quickly turned tense, with Brundage getting frustrated and accusing Jordan of lying, despite the judge's efforts to explain what the court could and couldn't do.
To be honest with you, sir, I thought this was just going to be thrown out. We had a date, one date, and nothing else after that. And now I'm being sued for $10,000. I don't see how this is going to go any further. I think it's a waste of your time.
Bottom line is, you said it's a criminal offense, so I will send it to circuit court. Are we done here?
No, you don't understand, ma'am. You don't understand.
Are we done here? Are we done here?
Perjury Perjury is
perjury
a false
I know exactly what perjury means. I know what
Brundage kept pushing her case, making the hearing messy and confrontational.
No further proceedings shall be had after transfer until these costs or expenses are paid. If not paid within 56 days of the date of this order, this case shall be dismissed by the court to which it was.
Eventually, Judge Marble moved the case to circuit court, stating it couldn't go forward unless Brundage paid certain fees within 56 days. If not paid, the lawsuit would be dropped. On August 12, 2019, 19-year-old Linley Jones caused fatal injuries to 18-year-old Willie Antonio Fields by inflicting wounds to his head and back. 3 years later, on July 14, 2022, Linley Jones, now 22, appeared in court and pleaded guilty to the murder. During the hearing, with the victim's family present, the courtroom was filled with intense emotions. As Willie's mother was addressing the court, the situation intensified.
Your Honor, I just want to let you know just what they took from me. They took away my only child. It's been so hard.
Overwhelmed by emotions and triggered by the sight of his son's killer, Mr. Fields, Willie's father, attacked Linley Jones. He struck Jones several times before court officials stepped in and restrained him. On April 14, 2017, while police were near a house on Platinum Street, a Montana parole and probation officer became engaged in an altercation outside the residence. Afterward, James Wasson was arrested for several serious crimes. Normally, a judge's role is to declare the sentence in court, but sometimes the defendant reacts in unexpected ways after hearing their sentence.
Court hereby sentences the defendant to 10 years MSP with 3 years suspended. And in relation to counts 2, 6, 7, and 11, the court also sentences the defendant to 10 years MSP with 3 years suspended on each count. Each of these counts shall run consecutive to each other. So the sentence in DC 17-267 is 50 years MSP.
No, I'm good.
Is 50 years with MSP with 15 to be hereby suspended. In the matter of DC 277, the court hereby sentences the defendant on each 3 counts to 10 years MSP with no time suspended. So the defendant is hereby sentenced to 277 to 30 years MSP. The sentences DC 17-267 shall run concurrent to 277 and shall also run concurrent to the Judge Newman's sentence in 1788. You will have 120 days from today's date to review my written judgment to make sure my written judgment complies with my oral judgment in this matter, and the clerk will handle the necessary forms for sentence review.
And Your Honor, we also run concurrent to DC 17-278, which was judgment.
Oh, and it shall run concurrent to that as well.
Any sentence prior to today runs concurrent.
Right, and how much time will we give the credit for time served?
Your Honor, he has been incarcerated since the date of arrest. We had that figured out the last time we were in front of the court. And we would add additional days as of from that last time. He was arrested on November 3rd, 2017. He would have credit from that date.
We shall give the credit, shall we give it to him?
Thank you.
Do you have anything else before this one?
Would be standard conditions of probation.
And during that time period, the court would also enter the standard surcharge for simulation as a matter of standard conditions. You can my James.
Thank you.
The judge sentenced him to 35 years in Montana State Prison for multiple felony crimes. On July 10, 2018, Mason Bryant and 2 others carried out a home invasion in Painesville, Ohio, where they stole about $800, a gold nugget ring, a phone, and a MacBook. They were charged with aggravated burglary, robbery, kidnapping, and abduction. On March 1, 2023, Bryant appeared in Lake County Court, a place he was familiar with due to a criminal record that began in 1999. At the trial, Bryant showed remorse, discussed his substance addiction issues, and requested a lighter sentence, citing respect for the court and his wish to change. Initially, Judge Eugene Lucci sentenced him to 22 years.
And therefore, the order of serving your prison time would be PRC time first, followed by the spec on count 1, followed by the spec on count 3, followed by count 1, followed by count 2, for a total of 22 years with credit for 231 days. The court determines that you have or will have the ability to pay restitution.
Courtroom, racist ass. Courtroom, man. You racist as nigga, 22 years. Racist ass.
However, after Bryant shouted profanities and accused the judge of racism following his sentencing, his sentence was extended by 6 years, bringing it to a total of 28 years. In 2014, Luis Bracamontes, a Mexican national who had illegally entered the U.S., was involved in the murders of Sacramento County Sheriff's Deputy Danny Oliver and Placer County Sheriff's Detective Michael Davis Jr. His crime spree also included attempted murder, carjacking, weapons violations, and other offenses.
Even though this gentleman may not want the due process, he's going to get it.
Throughout his trial, Bracamontes exhibited disruptive behavior, employing vulgar language and making unsettling statements about harming the officers and his intentions to inflict further harm. He also showed a lack of remorse, smiling and clapping when the jury announced their decision on his sentence. His defense team argued for a not guilty plea by reason of insanity, highlighting his erratic behavior and unsettling interactions with the victims' families, which suggested severe mental instability. After 4 hours of deliberation, the jury recommended the death penalty for Bracamontes. The emotional impact on the jurors was clear, as some were seen crying after their decision.
Break out soon, and I will more. You want to allow me to do that? Step out of the hallway. I don't regret that. The only thing that I regret is that I was killed too. I wish I killed more of them.
The case attracted political attention when then-President Donald Trump used Bracamontes in a campaign ad to criticize Democratic immigration policies, suggesting they contributed to such crimes. Judge Steve White of the Sacramento Superior Court was set to issue an official ruling following the jury's recommendation. The courtroom reaction was mixed. While Bracamontes displayed defiant behavior, the victims' families and others expressed grief and anger. Phyllis Sylvia, sister of the slain officer Danny Oliver, labeled Bracamontes a coward during the proceedings. In February 2014, Ronald Russo was discovered in his mobile home in Massachusetts, having sustained 69 stab wounds. His friend, Pete Dnik, was identified as responsible for the incident. During the trial, the details shared, including the autopsy results confirming the stab wounds, deeply affected everyone present, particularly Ronald's brother, Thomas Russo.
Further investigation, the autopsy report revealed that Mr. Russo did suffer 69 knife wounds to his body.
Overwhelmed by the details, Thomas attacked Dnik in the courtroom, causing chaos and injuring a court officer. Dnik claimed he acted in self-defense, noting a wound on his calf, but his behavior and threats at the time of arrest made this claim questionable. The crime scene was extremely violent, with Ronald's body found clutching a knife. Dukaknik was arrested near a train station, bloodied and with cuts on his hands. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. For his outburst, Thomas Russo was charged with disrupting court proceedings and resisting arrest. He pleaded not guilty, was released on bail, and ordered to avoid the defendant's family. The case and the courtroom drama had a profound impact on the community, highlighting the emotional intensity of such serious legal cases. On March 9, 2019, Jamie Osuna, 31, committed a horrific act of violence in his prison cell. He was accused of killing and dismembering his cellmate, Luis Romero, using a makeshift knife. The autopsy showed that Osuna had removed Romero's eye, a finger, a piece of his lung, and had decapitated him. He also cut Romero's face to resemble a smile and was found wearing a pendant made from Romero's body parts, indicating his extreme depravity. Romero, who had been in prison for 27 years and was nearing potential parole, had been convicted of second-degree murder as a teenager for a crime committed in Compton. Osuna had a notorious history even before this incident. In 2011, he was convicted for the torture and murder of 37-year-old Yvette Pena in a Bakersfield motel and was serving a life sentence. During his 2017 trial for Pena's murder, Osuna displayed disturbing behavior, mocking the victim's family and showing no remorse, and even declared his sadistic nature to a TV reporter.
I don't have no sympathy. I'm sadistic. I really don't care. I'll do it and I'll do it again over and over and over.
Highlighting his severe personality disorders. Diagnosed with schizophrenia and antisocial personality disorder, among other mental health issues, Osuna was later moved to a mental health treatment program at Salinas Valley State Prison after ending the life of Romero. His case has highlighted serious concerns about the placement of mentally ill and highly dangerous individuals within the prison system. In 2012, Sandra Lane, a 75-year-old woman from Detroit, attacked her 17-year-old grandson, Jonathan Hoffman, 6 times during a fight at her home in West Bloomfield Township, striking him twice in the back. Lane claimed she was defending herself, but a jury found her actions unjustified and convicted her of second-degree murder in 2013. A critical piece of evidence in the trial was a 911 call from Hoffman, pleading for help as he was being attacked.
911, what's your emergency? Where? Who? I've just been. Where are you at? My grandma I'm gonna help.
Lane was sentenced to at least 22 years in prison, which included a mandatory 2-year sentence for using a firearm. Recently, Jonathan Hoffman's estate filed a wrongful death suit against Lane and her husband, seeking over $1 million. At her sentencing, Lane expressed remorse and a wish not to die in prison, but her daughter called her pure evil and feared she could kill again.
If you really felt in a need to, why did you keep shooting?
The case highlighted the severity of his act, noting Lane used hollow point bullets, which cause extensive damage. On May 26, 2000, 13-year-old Nathaniel Brazil, a 7th grader, fired at his English teacher Barry Grunow at Lake Worth Middle School in Florida after Grunow denied his request to see 2 female classmates. Brazil was arrested shortly after the incident and charged with second-degree murder due to the severity of the crime. The case drew widespread attention, especially due to Brazil's age and the circumstances surrounding the incident. He was tried as an adult, a decision influenced by Florida laws from the 1990s that allowed easier prosecution of minors in adult courts. Court records showed Brazil had a difficult background, including exposure to domestic violence. Despite being an honor student previously well regarded, he was struggling academically and felt bullied. During his trial, the defense posited that the incident might have occurred unintentionally, implying Brazil did not have the intent to cause harm to Grunow.
I was holding it in my hand. My finger was on the trigger. I was holding it with both hands, holding it kind of tightly, and that's when the gun went off.
Who pulled the trigger?
I did.
Show us how it can go off unintentionally. Can you replicate or duplicate that for us in court this morning?
What do you mean?
Can you show us how it can go off without you meaning it to go off? Can you show us? How did it go off? That's what I can't understand what you're saying. How?
I pulled the trigger, but I did not intentionally pull the trigger.
After deliberating for 14 hours, the jury found him guilty of second-degree murder and aggravated assault, sentencing him to 28 years in prison rather than life, acknowledging his young age and the complexities of trying minors as adults. The trial sparked debates on whether juveniles should be tried as adults and the impact of such decisions on youth rehabilitation and justice. It also highlighted concerns about how young offenders are treated in the U.S. legal system. Barry Lucas Dale, involved in a tragic incident at Frontier Middle School in February 1996 when he was 14, is undergoing resentencing. On that day, he entered the school dressed as a gunslinger, armed with his father's pistols. In his algebra classroom, he attacked and ended the lives of his teacher and two classmates, Arnold Fritz and Manuel Villa, and injured another student. Then, Barry held his classmates hostage to negotiate an escape. The school's gym coach intervened, offering himself as a hostage and ultimately disarming Barry. Originally found guilty on September 24, 1997, Barry faced 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and 16 counts of aggravated kidnapping, receiving 2 life sentences plus 15 years. However, a 2017 court ruling that minors cannot be sentenced to life without the possibility of parole led to his resentencing to 189 years.
Doesn't replace what has been taken from you. And you should have it back.
During the resentencing, Barry apologized to the victims' families, acknowledging the profound suffering his actions caused. In 2011, Michael Shane Bargo and his accomplices were implicated in the tragic demise of 15-year-old Seth Jackson. Bargo lured Jackson into a house where he and his group assaulted and fatally harmed him. Bargo ended the life of Seth, and afterwards, they burned his body and dumped the ashes in a water-filled rock quarry.
15-year-old child knew he was being dragged back into a house and was going to.
Following his arrest, Bargo was tried, and a jury initially recommended the death penalty by a 10-2 vote, but this was later contested because Florida law had changed to require unanimous recommendations for the death penalty. The Florida Supreme Court ordered a new sentencing hearing due to the non-unanimous recommendation. At the resentencing, a unanimous jury again recommended the death penalty, which was then imposed, aligning with the legal requirements noted by the Supreme Court. During his appeal, Bargo's defense highlighted his mental health issues, claiming he was diagnosed with mental illnesses and was not medicated at the time of the crime.
He was not taking any medication for any of the mental illnesses that he had been diagnosed with.
Most judges, however, were not convinced by these arguments to alter the death sentence, with the exception of Justice George, who was concerned about the absence of a comparative proportionality review. Bargo's accomplices received life sentences, marking a clear difference in sentencing outcomes. Now 29, Michael Bargo is incarcerated at Union Correctional Institution, awaiting the execution of his sentence. Throughout the trial, Seth Jackson's mother expressed relief and a sense of justice being served for her son's murder. Kimberly Kesler was found guilty of first-degree murder in the of her co-worker, Jolene Cummings, in Nassau County, Florida. Kesler had been evading law enforcement for 25 years across various states under a fake identity while working at a hair salon called Tangles. Her criminal activities remained unnoticed until the incident involving her co-worker, where she fatally injured them with scissors and purportedly disposed of the body, although the specifics of this act were unclear.
Anyway, so I can say whatever I want.
We're not on mute.
Okay.
The crime brought significant attention from law enforcement. Kesler was monitored closely in jail, as shown in surveillance footage, due to the serious nature of her crime.
Feces from styrofoam trays in the back of her cell and smeared on herself on the walls. She began to throw feces at Smith, Miller, and I.
Her court behavior was disruptive, with frequent outbursts leading to her being removed to another room during the trial.
I refuse it. I have refused it. I refuse the public defender's office. They appointed Jolene Cummings' cousin as my public defender. What, you don't want the public to know that?
She rejected help from the public defender's office, claiming a conflict of interest because she believed a cousin of Jolene Cummings was assigned to her case. She consistently made false claims against her previous public defender, which complicated her defense and added to the chaos in court.
Beard is Jolene Cummings' cousin. Jordan Beard is Jolene's cousin.
Kesler was eventually sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, marking the end of a grave case of workplace violence and her longtime avoidance of the police. Steven Sanderson was serving a life sentence for taking the life of his girlfriend in 1991 in Wayne County. While in Saginaw Correctional Facility, he took the life of his cellmate, Theodore Dyer, a 67-year-old convicted of child abuse. Sanderson pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, saying he acted because Dyer kept talking about his crimes. He used shoelaces to strangle Dyer after knocking him out. At his trial, Sanderson expressed remorse for the distress caused to Dyer's family, but maintained his lack of remorse for the act itself, citing Dyer's history.
I don't feel bad for what I did, you know. I feel bad for maybe his family or something, but as far as remorse towards him, no.
He received another life sentence, this time with a chance for parole. Sanderson stated that despite some seeing him as a hero for his actions, he did not view himself that way.
People think I'm some kind of hero, well, I'm actually not. I just, did what I thought was best in the time that I was given. I've been getting these emails saying that, it's not my position to judge anybody. And I want to make it quite clear that I didn't judge him. I know God is the only judge we have. I've just set the appointment up.
He was later moved to a high-security area in Ionia Correctional Facility. Jacob Larson developed an unhealthy obsession with a former classmate, believing she was his soulmate. His obsession led to stalking her on Facebook and showing up at her workplace, resulting in her getting a restraining order against him. Despite clear instructions from the court to stop contacting her, Larson sent her 22 Facebook messages, openly disregarding the restraining order and legal boundaries. In court, Larson's behavior worsened as he disrespectfully interrupted Judge McBain, accused him of bias, and made inappropriate comments about the judge's daughter.
Hey, you know what? You got a bad attitude. You had a bad attitude last time you were in court. You were even referencing discussions about my own daughter.
His defiance escalated during the hearing, prompting Judge McBain to sentence him to 45 days in jail. Larson reacted with offensive language, angering the judge further, who then increased the sentence to 93 days.
45 days county jail. Okay. 93 days in the county jail. You want to go for a year? Try it right now.
Larson's resistance to arrest and confrontational actions in the courtroom heightened tensions. When Larson directly confronted his accuser and resisted handcuffing, Judge McBain physically intervened to help restrain him. Concerned for courtroom safety, McBain called for Larson to be tased, although it was ultimately not needed. Throughout this incident, Judge McBain stressed the need for order and respect in his courtroom. In Mitchellville, Iowa, a small town was deeply affected by a gruesome crime when Russell Overland ended the lives of his elderly parents, Gilbert, who was 81, and Naomi, age 71. The couple disappeared after a church service on January 28, 2007, and were later found dead in a cistern. Around the same time, their son Russell also went missing, which made authorities suspect his involvement. He was later found and arrested 400 miles away in Miami, Oklahoma. Upon being brought back to Iowa, Russell confessed to the tragic demise of his father and stepmother.
Next time she comes through, boss, slap her. Unless she's the judge.
According to the confession, he ambushed them after church, first attacking Naomi with a baseball bat on the back porch, and then striking Gilbert when he intervened. He also suffocated Gilbert with a pillow and continued to attack Naomi until she died. Russell said he committed the murders because he felt resentful towards his parents for their treatment of him at home.
If I come over to your table, does that mean I'm innocent? Just a thought, since my lawyer ain't showed up yet. He's probably stuck in the elevator somewhere.
He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without parole and is now in Iowa State Penitentiary. The murders left the Mitchellville community in shock and grief, struggling with the loss of trust and peace. Jodi Aras received a life sentence without the possibility of parole for the murder of Travis Alexander, whom she had a tumultuous relationship with. Aras, who was convicted of first-degree murder, claimed self-defense, stating that Alexander was attacking her when she stabbed and wounded him. Despite her defense, the severity of the attack influenced the proceedings. After 2 juries deadlocked on whether to impose the death penalty, the decision fell to Judge Sherry Stevens, who opted for life imprisonment without parole over a possible 25-year term.
This day I can hardly believe I was capable of such violence. And here now, I can't in good conscience ask you to sentence me to because of them.
Meaningless, especially since nobody believes what I'm saying anyway.
You said it right there, no one believes a word out of your mouth. Why do you keep talking?
Because I know that I've lied before. That doesn't mean that I'm a liar by definition, by character.
To a lot of people, they think this switch from I want to die to now I want to live is just another lie from Jodi Aras.
I don't know what that means. Was I lying when I said I want to die, or was I lying when I say, please spare my life?
I'm truly disgusted and I'm repulsed with myself. I'm horrified because of what I did, and I wish there was some way I could take it back.
During the sentencing, emotional appeals came from both families. Arias's mother requested leniency, while Alexander's sisters pushed for the strictest punishment, detailing the enduring trauma caused by the incident.
I don't want to remember him anymore. Because it hurts too much to remember him alive. I hate that she has taken my past of my brother and also my future. Memories of him. Give her the max sentence that you possibly can give her because she deserves nothing more.
Their testimonies highlighted the deep emotional scars left by the crime. The trial drew intense media attention, scrutinizing Arias's erratic behavior and the conflicting accounts she provided, alongside the sheer brutality of the crime. Imagine spending 18 years in prison for a crime you didn't commit. Daniel Gallegos was just 16 when he was arrested in El Paso, Texas, over accusations of a double homicide. Gallegos claimed that a detective forced a confession from him, threatening him with physical harm and the death penalty if he didn't comply. He ended up signing a confession prepared by the officer. Charged with 2 counts of capital murder, Gallegos faced a difficult legal fight. His coerced confession played a major role in his trials. Despite several retrials, the confession continued to influence jury decisions, resulting in repeated guilty verdicts. After 18 years, the verdict was finally overturned due to critical examination of the interrogation techniques and a lack of evidence linking him to the crime. In a significant courtroom moment, the jury declared Daniel Gallegos not guilty, recognizing his wrongful conviction. He was then freed, removing all previous legal restrictions.
Of Texas versus Daniel Gallegos. Verdict form B. We, the jury, find the defendant Daniel Gallegos not guilty of... You are no longer under any conditions. You are free to leave. Thank you.
The moment the verdict was announced, his family's overwhelming joy and relief were evident, capturing a poignant moment of justice after years of unjust imprisonment. On September 13th, 24-year-old Robert Howes broke into a woman's house in Gat Mills, Ohio. He pointed a weapon at her during the break-in, but she escaped by locking herself in the bathroom and calling 911. The next day, after dinner, former Cleveland NFL player Joe Jurevicius noticed an unusual light in his barn. Upon investigating, he encountered Howes, who coerced him at threat to open a safe. Howes wore Jurevicius's Super Bowl gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints and stole a weapon, alcohol, and camera equipment, and asked for cash. The police easily tracked down Howes as he was wearing a GPS ankle monitor while on parole. During the court proceedings, Joe Jurevicius testified against Howes, expressing his belief that Howes was not rehabilitated and requesting the maximum sentence.
Clearly, he didn't learn his lesson and was not rehabilitated, and I'm requesting that he receive the maximum sentence allowed by law.
Jurevicius, reflecting on his grandmother's advice about not speaking ill of others, said he had nothing positive to say about Howes.
Unfortunately, my grandmother told me a long time ago, if you have nothing nice to say about somebody, don't say it, in your honor. At this point, I have nothing good to say. Bullshit, man. Get out of here, man. Here, man.
Howes was sentenced to 46 years in prison, a verdict that visibly frustrated him, indicating he might have hoped for a lesser punishment. In 2010, Lorenzen Wright, a former professional basketball player, tragically lost his life, and his body was discovered 10 days after he went missing. The case remained unsolved for years, leaving his family, friends, and fans in anguish. In 2019, his ex-wife, Shara Wright, pleaded guilty to facilitating first-degree murder, acknowledging her role in planning and assisting in his murder.
I'm taking full responsibility for setting up the meeting on the 18th that eventually led to his death.
By pleading guilty, she avoided a potential life sentence and was instead sentenced to 30 years in prison. Shara was deemed instrumental in arranging the meeting that led to Lorenzen's death. After serving about 4 years of her sentence, Shara sought parole but was denied. The parole board stated that releasing her would undermine the severity of the crime and respect for the law. She is required to serve at least 30% of her sentence, around 9 years, before she is eligible for release. Her co-defendant, Billy Ray Turner, was convicted of first-degree murder and other charges, receiving a life sentence for his part in the crime.
Of first-degree murder is charged in count 1 of the indictment. Count 2, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Count 3, criminal attempt first-degree murder.
The tragic passing of Lorenzen Wright represented a significant loss, not just to his family, but also to the sports community and his devoted fans. It garnered significant media attention and sparked discussions on domestic violence and the difficulties in solving high-profile cases. Shara Wright's parole denial reflects ongoing efforts by Lorenzen Wright's family and the community to seek justice. Her next parole opportunity is scheduled for 2027, ensuring she remains in prison for a substantial part of her sentence. In March 2019, 21-year-old University of South Carolina senior Samantha Josephson mistakenly got into Nathaniel Roland's car, thinking it was her Uber ride, which tragically led to her death. After she entered, Roland locked the doors with child-proof locks, preventing her escape, and then violently attacked her. Samantha's body was later discovered in a remote area 65 miles from Columbia, South Carolina, with over 120 stab wounds. Evidence such as her blood inside Roland's car, on a knife believed to be the murder weapon, and other items like cleaning supplies and her cell phone suggested an attempt to hide the crime. The trial received national attention and raised serious safety concerns about ride-sharing services. Despite Roland's claims of innocence, the compelling physical evidence led to his conviction on charges of murder, kidnapping, and weapon possession during a violent crime. He was sentenced to life without parole on July 27, 2021.
He is guilty of murder. He's guilty of kidnapping. He's guilty of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime.
During the sentencing, Samantha's mother, Marcy Josephson, expressed her profound sorrow and the enduring repercussions of her daughter's violent death.
As a mother, you worry and pray that your child will be safe, happy, and healthy. When she was sad, I was sad. When she was happy, so was I. Her dreams were my dream, and her death was my death.
The case highlighted the need for better safety measures in ride-sharing services, prompting discussions about verifying driver and vehicle identities and calls for stricter regulations to protect passengers. Gregory Agnu, born on November 1, 1967, had a troubling relationship with Tammy Never, marked by possessiveness and toxicity, and they had a child together. Tammy disappeared in August 1993, shortly after ending their relationship. Despite strong suspicions, no solid evidence could link Agnu to her disappearance. In an effort to get a confession, Tammy's friend Martha McGeorge worked with the police by wearing a wire, but instead, she ended up dating and eventually marrying Agnu.
You walked out of that bedroom?
I don't think I went down there.
You don't think you went down to the bedroom?
I don't think so.
You never looked in that bedroom?
I don't know.
You never looked at Martha laying in the bed dead?
I don't know.
I thought you had a good memory of February 17, 2018.
I don't recall.
This marriage protected her from having to testify against him due to spousal privilege, thwarting the investigation. By 2018, Agnu and Martha were getting divorced. Shortly thereafter, Martha was discovered lifeless in their residence, having been strangled and drugged. Agnu was tried and found guilty of her murder, although his defense claimed that Martha's risky lifestyle and substance use led to her death by an unknown assailant.
I don't understand how anyone can take a mother away from their kids. Not once, but possibly twice. I'm disgusted and hurt that you did these things and are sitting there with these secrets. Where is Tammy dead?
The jury didn't buy this explanation, and Agnu was sentenced to life in prison and is now in Bellamy Creek Correctional Facility. While Agnu was convicted of killing Martha, Tammy Niver's disappearance remains unsolved, and he is still considered a suspect. The case is still open with the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office, which continues to seek closure. Jason T. Harris from Michigan has been sentenced to life without parole after being found guilty of the premeditated murder of his wife, Christina Ann Thompson. Christina was found dead in her bed on September 29, 2014, shortly after the birth of their second child. She died from poisoning after Jason laced her cereal with a lethal dose of heroin.
A healthy 36-year-old who doesn't wake up is not ordinary. That should have been suspect from the get-go, and it wasn't. So we had to fight for her.
Initially, her death was considered an accidental overdose by the medical examiner, Dr. Brian Hunter, but Christina's family, who insisted she did not use any illegal substances, prompted further investigation.
We believe he put heroin into her cereal and milk the night that she died.
Detective Sergeant William Skillinger took on the case, spending 2 years gathering information from interviews with people who knew Christina and conducting forensic tests, including on her stored breast milk. These tests showed no signs of heroin, supporting the family's claims and contradicting the initial overdose ruling. The extensive investigation ultimately led to Harris's conviction for first-degree murder.
I do stand behind my innocence behind this. I'm going to hope for appeals.
During the trial, evidence was presented that included Harris's expressed desires to end his marriage and his infidelity, as recounted by his brother and sister.
I had no right to take her away. The impact of your crime has and will affect me for the rest of my life. Christy did not deserve this.
Despite the strong evidence against him, Harris maintained his innocence and suggested he would appeal. Christina's family has been deeply affected, mourning her loss while dealing with the profound betrayal by Harris. His life sentence serves as a measure of justice for them. On July 13, 2008, just after 2 a.m., Officer Josh McTarian pulled over Ashford Thompson for loud music on Glenwood Drive, near State Route 91. Officer McTarian's police K-9, Baggio, was in the patrol car at the time. The situation quickly escalated after the stop, and communication with Officer McTarian stopped following a dispatcher's report that Thompson had a concealed weapon permit. Thompson then attacked Officer McTarian, striking him 4 times in the head after McTarian had managed to handcuff one of Thompson's wrists. A 911 caller reported hearing loud bangs, and fellow officers soon found Officer McTarian on the ground, with Thompson's driver's license and insurance card in his pocket.
If you see me with a straight face, it's not because I just have no feeling or I just hate people. I'm just some kind of cold-blooded killer. I wasn't raised like that.
Officer McTarian was transported to Metro Health Medical Center, where medical professionals pronounced him deceased. Thompson fled the scene, but was later found at his sister's house, still with the handcuff on his wrist. The murder weapon was located on the kitchen stove there.
The jury saw through Thompson's false humility, observed his arrogant and callous disregard for the life of our friend, as well as the laws of our society, and determined that the only proper sentence for his crime is death.
He was arrested and charged with aggravated murder, along with other offenses including fleeing, resisting arrest, tampering with evidence, and carrying a concealed weapon. In 2010, Thompson was convicted by a Summit County jury and sentenced to death by Summit County Common Pleas Court Judge Eleanor Marsh Stormer. The jury cited his lack of remorse and disregard for life and law in recommending the death penalty, which Judge Stormer affirmed on June 23, 2010.
I understand, what I did is a terrible thing, but I wasn't the only one in this situation.
Since his arrest, Thompson has been in prison and unsuccessfully appealed his conviction and death sentence to the Ohio Supreme Court. In March 2018, Benny Duarte, while drunk, crashed into a vehicle at a red light on the Pacific Coast Highway in Huntington Beach, causing it to hit a pole and catch fire. 3 teenagers in the car, Brooke Hawley, Dylan Mack, and AJ Rossi, died at the scene, and a 4th was permanently injured. Duarte's blood alcohol level was 4 times over the legal limit. She was convicted of 3 counts of murder and 1 count of drunk driving, receiving a life sentence of 31 years to life.
Kids, including my 17-year-old daughter, they got a life sentence, so I think she deserves a life sentence.
Orange County District Attorney Todd Spitzer highlighted the severe implications of drinking and driving. The tragedy deeply affected the victims' families, who voiced their sorrow and anger in court, with one calling Duarte a heartless, cold monster.
Ugly, heartless, cold monster, and that's all you'll ever be.
During sentencing, Duarte showed remorse and asked for forgiveness, mentioning her separation from her children and acknowledging her responsibility.
I just want to say that I'm truly sorry, and maybe one day you will forgive me.
It was noted that this was not her first DUI offense, although she hadn't been convicted previously. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can stay updated with our latest videos.